All right, welcome. You ever see a fund manager bragging about a huge 20% return and think to yourself, yeah, but what did it cost to get that? Well, today, we're adding a tool to your financial toolkit that answers that exact question. It helps you see right past those flashy numbers to the real price of performance. Let's dive in. So here's the plan. First, we're going to tackle a classic performance puzzle that trips up a lot of people. Then, we'll introduce the specific tool built to solve it and pop the hood to see how it works. After that, we'll put it to work ranking managers in a real-world scenario, talk about when not to use it, and finally, we'll land on the one critical question this tool forces every smart analyst to ask. Okay, so let's start with a core problem that analysts face all the time. Raw performance numbers on their own can be seriously misleading. To see what I mean, check this out. It's a classic situation. You've got Fund A, which brings in 15%, and Fund B, which gets you 12%. Now, at first glance, Fund A looks like the no-brainer, right? Higher return is always better. But in the world of finance, the obvious answer, well, it's rarely the whole story. The real truth is hiding just one layer deeper. Because here's the secret. Returns don't just appear out of thin air. They're the reward you get for taking on risk. So the real question isn't who made more money, it's who was smarter about turning risk into reward. And to answer that, you need a very specific tool for the job. And that's where the Treynor ratio comes in. It was created by an economist named Jack Treynor for this exact situation, to get past the size of a return and measure its quality. So what is it? Basically, the Treynor ratio tells you how much extra return you got for every single unit of market risk you took on. And that market risk has a special name, systematic risk. Understanding that term is the key to unlocking this whole concept. You see, in finance, we really split risk into two big buckets. First, there's unsystematic risk. Think of a single company's bad product launch. It's specific. If you have a well-diversified portfolio, that one company's problem gets smoothed out. The Treynor ratio completely ignores this. It focuses only on the second bucket, systematic risk. This is the big stuff, a recession, interest rate hikes, things that affect the entire market. It's the one kind of risk you just can't diversify away. So how does this tool actually measure that relationship between the rewards you get and that unavoidable market risk? Okay, let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine inside. And here it is. I know it might look a little mathy, but trust me, the idea behind it is incredibly simple. The top part of the fraction, that's your reward. The bottom part, that's the risk. Let's look at each piece. Okay, so on the top, you got your reward. We take the portfolio's total return, which is RP, and then we subtract RF, the risk-free rate. Just think of that as what you could have earned from a super safe government bond without taking any risk at all. That little bit of subtraction isolates the extra reward, the bonus you got for actually putting your money on the line. Now the bottom part, beta, this is the secret sauce. You can think of beta as the price you paid for that return. It measures how much your portfolio bounces around when the whole market moves. A high beta means you took on a lot of volatility. So the entire ratio is just your extra reward divided by the risk price you paid. Simple as that. All right, enough theory. Let's see this thing in action. We're going to go back to that original puzzle and see how a real analyst would use the Treynor ratio to figure out who the really skilled manager is. And here it is, the big reveal. Look at Fund A. Sure, it got a 15% return, but it did that by taking on a ton of market risk. Its beta was 1.2, which is pretty high. They were just riding a really big market wave. But Fund B, they got their 12% with a much lower beta of 0.8. They were playing it a lot smarter. So when we run the numbers, Fund B comes out as the clear winner. The manager for Fund B was actually the more skillful pilot, generating way more return for every single unit of market risk they took on. And this right here is the key takeaway. It's not about just grabbing the highest return you can find. It's about finding the manager who is most skilled at turning market risk into real returns. It's about getting the most bang for your risk buck. So what's a good number look like in the real world? Well, this table gives you a pretty solid rule of thumb. If you see anything over 1.0, you're probably looking at a top-tier manager. On the flip side, a negative ratio is a massive red flag. It literally means you took on risk and got back less than you would have from a dead simple T-bill. Ouch. This is how analysts can quickly sort the truly skilled from the just plain lucky. But, like any tool in the workshop, the Treynor ratio isn't the right one for every single job. You have to know when to pull it out, and just as important, when to leave it in the box. So let's open up the user manual. So where does Treynor fit in? Well, look at its main rival, the Sharpe ratio. Sharpe measures your return against total risk. That's both market risk and that company-specific stuff. That makes it great if you're just looking at a single stock. But the Treynor ratio, it's a specialist. It's built for comparing big, well-diversified portfolios where you assume all that company's specific risk has already been canceled out. So bottom line, comparing a bunch of mutual funds, Treynor's your guy. Looking at one single stock, Sharpe is probably the better choice.
And every tool has its blind spots. For one, the math completely falls apart if you have a negative beta, which some hedging funds do. The number you get is also super sensitive to the market benchmark you pick. You can't judge an international fund against the S&P 500 and expect a useful answer. And you have to remember, this is all backward looking. It's like driving by only looking in the rearview mirror. It tells you what happened, not what's going to happen.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. Because the true genius of this tool isn't just the number it spits out. It's the powerful shift in mindset that it creates.
Ultimately, this is why it matters. The Treynor ratio fundamentally changes the conversation. It moves you from asking, how much did I make, to asking, what did it cost me in market risk to get that return? It proves that every single point of return has a price tag, and it gives you the tool to figure out if you paid a fair price.
So, the next time you see some fund manager on TV boasting about their incredible returns, you'll know better. You now have the right tool to look under the surface, to move past the headline number, and to ask the much, much smarter question. At what risk? And asking that question, well, that's what separates an amateur from a real analyst.